We ready? Okay. I'd like to call this meeting of the Coventry Municipal Fire Commission to order at 6:07 PM. Roll call, Hillary Lima present, Lieutenant McCann,
Present.
Captain McAloon,
Present.
Brian Teston,
Here.
Russ McGillivray,
Here.
Peter Rondo,
Here.
Jillian Weinmiller.
Here.
Dan Perillo is absent. Bob Savetti. Stephen Angel is absent. Chief Heiss.
Here.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. We have two sets of emergency evacuation plan. In the event of an emergency, those present this evening can exit outdoors labeled number 1 or 2 in the back of council chambers to the front lawn or back parking lot of town hall. Moving to meeting minutes from prior meetings, we have two sets this evening, February 13th, 2025 and February 27th, 2025. Do I hear a motion to approve the minutes as a block?
Motion.
Motion, do I hear a second? Second, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. And now, do I hear a motion to approve the block?
Motion.
Motion?
Second.
And a second. Any discussion? No? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The minutes are approved. Moving to public comment on docketed items. Those items on our agenda this evening, please come forward to the microphone, state your name and address for the record. Anyone on Zoom, Mr. Houghton? Please raise your hand if you have any public comment on docketed items. Hello, please unmute yourself and state your name and address for the record.
Hello, Robert Heavey, 607 Weaver Hill Road, Coventry.
We can hear you. Go ahead.
Well, I have one major comment in looking at the packet tonight.
He just left. Not any back. Okay. All right. Public comment going once. Oh, he's back.
Hello?
Hello.
Sorry about that. I got disconnected.
All right. We can hear you. You're back.
Okay, one item of concern is the Western Coventry municipal equivalent municipal tax increase, which is posted at 18% in this packet. And the fact that I don't think all the numbers are there yet, but the bigger concern is that there are businesses in Western Coventry that presently do not pay a commercial tax rate. And with this change, you're going to be taxing them, at least as proposed, commercial tax rate. And those businesses for their fire protection are going to see a 77% tax increase. Is everyone on the commission aware of that?
We're just going over this for the first time. So we're taking, the finance director is taking note on that. And we're going to review that. Appreciate the feedback. Do you have other questions or comments about other portions of our agenda tonight?
Well, those are the major ones that I've been able to see so far with the time I've had to put into this package, but I'm sure I'll have more
Okay.
as I go back through it.
Gotcha. All right. Well, I hope you'll stick around and listen to discussion
Yep.
and welcome you to message members of this commission with any additional feedback.
I don't want to commit an Open Meetings Act violation by creating that type of discussion.
Yeah, I would suggest not emailing the entire commission. I would, if you want to share a comment, you could share it with the town manager or the town clerk that can then remit to the full commission.
Except won't that become a Open Meetings Act violation?
Nope.
No?
That's how public comment is submitted for town council. When it becomes an open meetings violation if members of the commission respond to you and reply all,
Correct.
and then have conversation about your feedback in a group email.
Or in any group that's larger than the quorum, and I'm not sure what the quorum of this commission is.
No, but what I'm saying to you is if you submit your feedback or public comment, if the group does not reply all, then that is not an open meetings violation.
Well, they don't have to reply all, they just have to reply in a revolving discussion to more than, or in the total context, a quorum of the commission can't be involved in the discussion, even if it's a revolving discussion where one person talks to the next person who talks to the third
Yes,
person.
the individual members of this commission are allowed to communicate with you. They cannot communicate with each other, then communicate with another and another. I understand what a rolling quorum is.
Yes. Well, understood. Hopefully they understand.
Yep,
Thank you.
thank you. Anyone else on Zoom, Mr. Houghton? Okay. Public comment going once, twice, 3 times. Public comment is closed. The grant writer is on her way, so we can go to the other 2 items on our list. We'll go to B, salary comparison for the 4 districts with the attachment. Lieutenant McCann and Jillian, I believe we've got you down next to this item.
So this was just a comparison between the 3 districts, and I didn't have any information from Weston, so Jillian had added theirs. Just a comparison of the different ranks that we have. So I had a total of 48, well, it's now 54 members. We're just doing comparisons from where we would probably need to catch up or somebody lacking behind. So if you look at assistant chief, say for Central Coventry is at 83,000. Yes, it's in the packet. Yeah. If you look at the assistant chiefs, it's pretty much lined up, other than with Hopkins Hill. Like the Anthony district doesn't have one. The only 2 assistant chiefs that are around are one for Central and one for Hopkins Hill. It's a little bit of a difference there. If you look at that, it's $12,000 a year difference. Other than that, there's no full-time fire marshals anywhere, so we'd have to think about how we're going to handle that. At the captains, if you look at Central Coventry, they're at 79,000. The Anthony district, we just renegotiated a contract to try to keep the salaries in line. We are right up there, so on and so forth. So we're looking at a little bit of a difference with the top steps and then at the entry levels. But for the most part, they're pretty close.
So like if you had to attach kind of a margin of error to where we are across the board, what would you say and kind of contextualize it?
Very small margin of error.
Okay.
And that's just base salary. I know
Yeah, I was just gonna say,
Ryan's looking at a whole nother packet, but
This
we
is,
just,
this is the base salary, but there's also stipends for clothing allowance, for EMT, cardiac or paramedic licenses that they have. There's longevity payments that vary across districts. And then, holiday payments and things like that. So this is helpful, and it's also it's included in the next document that we're going to discuss. But those other things are also need to be included when we standardize everything.
Yeah, and I would assume we'd want to have that discussion in this commission, because then that gives the council a lot of detail to consider before entering any potential CBA negotiation. The baseline, though.
If you're looking to create a draft of what a budget would look like, you have to have that
Yeah,
conversation,
exactly.
because the people costs, the direct costs and the indirect costs are going to be 80% of the total department costs. So unless and you have to make some assumptions in doing so, but unless you make some assumptions about what a unified union contract would look like, and that would then reset, or bring up to firefighters in different districts up to the same levels and make them, captain's a standard payment, lieutenant a standard, and then everyone on the, have access to the same tiers for longevity payments and things like that. It's the only way you're going to be able to put something in front of people that and it results in a meaningful budget, and something that the council could then say what we can use as a framework to negotiate a contract.
Right. Any other discussion?
Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry.
oh, go ahead, Russ.
The only thing I see here is also the, 4 dispatchers. I know that subcontracted through the town pays for them to Hopkins Hill. I just don't see them in the thing, so we'd have to add them.
Yeah.
Right, total wise, what were you thinking for, we'll say FT, full-time employee? Roughly, what were you thinking? I mean, again, salary, overtime, longevity, pension contributions. What was your final figure when you were doing all this? Because when Kevin and I first did it the first time around, I came up to about 175,000 per FTE.
Depends on the rank though, right?
Everything, no, that include everything. What I did is, because it's gonna shift around a little bit between, and if you look at, Kevin's comparison, you look at Central's newer firefighters make a little bit less than my newer firefighters,
Right.
yet that captains make a little bit more.
Mhm.
So it kind of evens out. That's why I said it's very minuscule. But if you look at the total FTEs that we're gonna require for the town,
Mhm.
if you budget in, like, say, and again, I shot high, I went $175,000. You're looking at what, 12.5, if my math's correct, around that?
So are you taking into account not just, so you're layering on top of the salary and benefits, the total compensation that goes to a firefighter, you're layering on top of that what the district pays for pension, what the district pays for premium for health insurance, all of that stuff. Okay, that's going to be a higher number, and I can. So what I did, and the trouble with sending this out like 2 days in advance of a meeting on an agenda is that there's no context, and so people get ahead of themselves. This document is not intended to be a final document. It's not intended to even be a proposal. It's intended to be a starting point, a framework, of a format, right? From that point, the left half of it is ties off to each district's budget, okay, in total. I had to move things around to make sure that legal is on one line for every district and ends up in a total, but things are moved around, but they tie off to a total budget. What we then create on the right half of it, in terms of putting, one worksheet, and putting everyone on the same contract at the, the rates that you have for the highest captain rate, the highest lieutenant rate, the highest firefighter rate with the steps, layering in all of the additional stipends and longevity payments and things like that, adjusting for healthcare, adjusting for pension costs and all of that. Once you do all of that, you'll get an updated figure here, right? And then you look at it and say, what else changes in a town department, right? Maybe you're hiring an extra resource in town for IT, for tax collection, but what also happens is any resources that you have for those functions at each of the individual districts might go away. So what I tried to do here was lay all of that out and then task each district with a homework assignment of going through their column, because you guys will know it best, right? I know my district, but you'll know yours better than I do. So go through your column here and ask yourself the question, line item by line item. In a town department, what's in that number? And does it still exist? Does it go to zero? Does it change up or down? You tell me. I can provide you the payroll worksheet behind these numbers for the union section that would show you what I'm using as a salary for each individual rank and all of the extra stuff. But we have to go through that exercise, and then we have to incorporate all those changes into a document before we have any discussions or scrutinize any of the numbers, right? That's just the first step of the process that has to take place before anyone jumps up and says, well, the answer is not what I thought it was going to be. Well, we're the very first step of the process. It's not intended to be an answer yet, right?
I just think and I agree with you, Brian, I just think the basis of this was part of this was the salaries to see where the differences were and how far, if they are, how far out of. And
On your document, absolutely agree. It's laid out exactly the way you need it to be.
before we start moving forward.
I think too, we should mention, we're kind of putting the cart before the horse. We were just talking about Kevin's document.
Yeah.
And we kind of shifted to yours. So I know I had some concerns that Bob already brought up. I guess my question would be, could you send us your file so that
Sure.
we can enter in and then,
Whatever's easiest. I'd be happy to, like, if you want to take this, circle things that you have questions about, or write all over it, and then take a week to do that, and then meet with me, and we can go through it line item by line item. I'm happy to do that with each district, and
whatever's easiest for you.
we can do that, and then by the time we get to the next meeting, we can take that and incorporate it and send out a new, an updated version.
And then also, like I said, we're getting the cart before the horse, but those tax rates at increases at the end, I believe you said before the meeting, that was with including more people. I think that we should also have one with, if it's just not status quo, obviously, but how many people we have now, see what that number would be.
Sure.
Because obviously 18%, like Bob said, is a lot for
Yeah.
certain, but if it's not going to be that, it's just a sticker shock. So
Yeah, and I get that.
maybe having both. Just
The,
so we
the intention was to just show
Mhm.
how the format works, right? You take all of your costs, plan what the total operating expenses of a municipal fire department would look like. Then you look at the revenue side and you say, okay, how much rescue recovery does each district pull in? Any other small revenue items too. And then you say, okay, in order to balance that budget, what's the levy that I need? And then take that levy and say, look at the assessed values at each district, add those up. That's what that other sheet was intended to do. It was just to show how to do the calculation. Yeah, the math is there based on what's on this page, but if what's on this page is not final, then you can't rely on the answer on the
No, I
heavy side, right?
completely agree with you. I'm just saying
It's
from
just
like
frustrating when
taxpayers,
folks
they don't know
jump to
that.
conclusions,
They're
right?
thinking it's just, this is what it is. If we become a municipal now, but that's not actually, like, you added some people on too, so.
Yeah.
You just needed some time to explain.
What I would tell people is come back in a month or two. And if it's still 18%, then you have fair rights to scrutinize and ask questions, right? Let us go through the process first.
But yeah, if, let me know and let the others
Yeah.
know what is best for you, if you want us to meet with you, or if you want to just give us your file and we can send it back with our stuff.
Let's talk after. I'll schedule time with you.
Brian, just looking at this stuff, your tax levy, it's not broken down into the steps though, right? Because we have residential and commercial. You have residential and commercial rates as well?
I do. Do you have the sheet or no? This is just the
Some
budget.
specific
There's
one.
another sheet. We can go through it later.
Can
But yes, it's broken out in terms of assessed value and levy by category: residential, commercial, industrial, tangible. What you have today is at the top, and then at the bottom is taking what comes from this budget and solving for what it would look like as a combined department, right? And then comparing that answer to what each district has today. So you can see what would change. Now, that being said, if all the, taxes are coming out of the town, then people are not going to be getting that bill, right? It's going to be one bill, part of the property tax, et cetera.
Brian, was that the one that indicated 2.08? Was that the final number that was on that sheet? I know it was in the packet. I didn't print it out today.
I have that.
Sorry. You came up with a number. I thought it was 2.08 was the average.
0.008 per thousand was what was necessary on a residential basis, just as a calculation to balance what's on this page. Acknowledging that what's on this page is far from final, right?
Understood. No, from my mind, I know where to go. I know what to print now. Thank you.
Yeah.
Anything else on the salary piece? All right. The grant writer's here if we want to move to her. So the other piece of our agenda we had this evening is a presentation by the town grant writer on grant opportunities. We had talked about how as districts, you may not be able to take full advantage of the grant opportunities, federal or state, that are out there, which the town is able to. So we wanted Lisa Andoja, the town's grant writer, to come tonight and talk about what kind of opportunities we'll have if this district is unified under the town. Welcome.
Oops, thank you.
No, so the base of this committee is really just to explore what a unified entity would look like. Then it's going to take the product of this exploration, deliver it to the town council, and the town council will decide what to do next in terms of fire and EMS services. We have done the prospective capital improvement plan. I think it was a 5-year we did, and that included buildings, apparatus, equipment on personnel, et cetera. So I don't think that we have even thought of a plan of anything new. I think right now it's really just baseline. What would it mean to combine everything? The conversation we had was more, the districts have never been able to take advantage of the public safety grant opportunities that are out there. And we just wanted to know, when we're looking ahead at building a budget, what opportunities are maybe annual that we can take advantage of, or what's in the near future that we could consider as we pull together the plan.
Okay, wonderful, thank you, and I appreciate the background. I can share with you with the consideration of a transition to become a municipal department, funding could be anywhere from $500,000 to $1 million. And the federal grants that are out there, FEMA, assistance to firefighter grants, you may be familiar with it. It's for equipment training, vehicles, fire upgrades. Safer grants, I've secured those. It's for staff hiring and retention. Fire prevention and safety, that's public safety and research grants. Then there's private foundations under congressional direct spending. Senator Reid, along with White House, they've done a wonderful job in terms of securing funding for equipment. And I think it's a wonderful idea that you're being creative to include EMA as part of it, because that's what's going to get the funding. There is not much funding out there unless you have a population of under 20,000, which Coventry does not, unfortunately, for infrastructure. Last year, the state did have some ARPA money that was left over for municipal public infrastructure. It was up to $1 million. I don't know if they're going to release that again. If so, I will definitely make you aware of it, because that could be for deferred maintenance. But by actually combining the EMA, I've been able to get a lot of funding for equipment to be tied into the RISCON, to get the latest, state-of-the-art funding. And I think that's probably the best, most thoughtful way to do it, to go after additional funding. I can share with you, Senator Reid has actually filed a bipartisan bill for fire departments to get funding for capital improvements. That right now hasn't advanced. I'm hopeful that it will. It hasn't even been, the bill hasn't even been passed yet, so they haven't identified like how much is going to be in the trust fund, where the funding's coming from, and what the maximum would be. But by including the EMA, you could apply for CDBG, which is HUD. So this year, the deadline is May 20th, and the town, could put in for 3 requests up to $500,000. So if there is a listing of priorities for equipment, I'm happy to work with the CDBG coordinator to put that funding in.
Yeah, I would say no entity is going to form by May 20th out of this, but I wonder if the town is able to apply and then disperse it. That I don't know what the logistics are, but we'll still only have 4 districts on May 20th. So, you mentioned equipment. Can you talk about specifics in terms of equipment and what the grants fund there, if it's soup to nuts, or if there's specific equipment that we could in the future get support with?
It's everything from ladder trucks,
Oh, okay.
yeah, to equipment, to actual fire equipment.
All right, great. Anyone have questions for Ms. Sandosha?
Just had one question. You said EMA. They currently participate in our EMA. Are they eligible under that?
Yes, they are, actually. Yep, so the police, right now, the EMA comes under the police department.
It
So
does.
you could put in a request, and Chief, I'm more than happy to work with you. If you have a listing of priorities, it might be something that you have in your budget that could possibly be off balance sheet, meaning you put in a request for CDBG, and you can free up that funding, but you can apply up to $500,000.
They're not under our budget, but they're involved with our EMA.
Be basically a sub-recipient, right? Generally, you'll have CDBG, I know different organizations, the town gets it, but then gives it to a nonprofit. They're essentially a quasi-municipal entity. So could the town apply for CDBG and then disperse?
Yes, you could, because that's operational preparedness, it's community outreach.
part.
Yes,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Anyone else?
I'll bet when we were in East Greenwich, based on the population and area, we got some money from USDA because it's a rural fire coverage, and more than half the town doesn't have any fire hydrants. So there was some money through USDA for some of that stuff, and also Department of Transportation. We covered Route 4, so it might be a little different, but depending on the amount of either state or federal roads, there was some money for equipment from DOT as well.
If there's ever a grant opportunity, my business model is, it's always forwarded to me from the municipality, and I'll actually go to the head of the department and say, what is your priority, and put it in. Under USDA, the threshold is 20,000, and Coventry exceeds that for population. But if DOT has any funding available, it could even come under, I've seen it actually, grants come out under Department of Commerce. under preparedness, business resiliency.
Lisa, what's the, is there any particular time that public safety grant, the public safety grant applications or anything similar all get released, or, if the council decides to move forward, and say, gives a date to when it would, go to the unified department, um, you know, and we want to prepare for that and apply, say, in the fall or something, I mean, is there a particular time of year that we should prepare or be aware and make sure to touch base with you in terms of these particular opportunities?
Yes, I could actually put together a chronology on the grants, the RFPs that are going to be coming out, what they're for, and suggested timeframes that they're going to actually release it.
Okay,
Be happy to do that. Be my pleasure.
yeah. You're good? Anything else for Lisa? This is very helpful. Thank you.
I was just gonna say, I think that, that last point that she made about having a list of what's out there and when in the year is it available is the biggest thing that we've lacked at a district level. And I can only speak for my district, but I don't know what I don't know. I don't know what's out there unless someone tells me, and I don't have access to a grant writer. So, and unless I'm out there on the internet searching FEMA's website myself, like we're missing out, right?
Well, and part of the benefit with Lisa is she's got the relationships.
Yeah.
So I think if you're able to, if you could prepare kind of that, this is usually when these specific grants come out related to your needs. I think we should absolutely have that included in whatever the final packet of all this work is, to support it.
Yeah, it would be my absolute pleasure, and thank you for mentioning, President. I work very closely with the congressional delegation, so as soon as something is submitted for a client, I'll go to Senator Reed, he's the senior senator on appropriations, and his office will always do a letter of support. That really strengthens a submission.
Anything else on grants?
No, I just rather say, we appreciate her time. This is something that's, we've tried to bring forth, not per se all the districts, but at least on our end, we've tried to do this in the past with the door being shut. Trying to make people aware of what kind of grants are out there and not being taken care of. We've been trying to do this for years under the district model and going unheard because they just accuse us of wrongdoing. So with that being said, under the municipal department, things would be a lot more advantageous to get grants instead of the individual district model.
Well, yeah, and even, there were times where the districts were almost competing with the town for some grant opportunities. Like, they only have so much available for each municipality. So I think there was a point where there was like a cybersecurity grant, and Hopkins Hill or Central applied for it, which meant whatever they won would come off a balance that the town could apply again
Right.
for. Yeah, there's no need for us to do that to each other.
Exactly.
Jillian?
I think it also should be mentioned, it's not federal, but I know NFPA and SFPE also give out grants as well for fire. So that would be another avenue we could go for.
Working with those organizations for grants?
No, but you just reminded me with cybersecurity, Department of Justice, the JAG grants. I've secured a lot of awards for that.
Okay.
But any grants that come my way, I'm more than happy to put a competitive application together. But it begins with having that priority list and probably doing a needs assessment, what's needed for equipment, what's needed for staffing. And I think it's a great idea to actually come up with a great model where you can actually transition it to become a municipal department, because it'll be available for more funding.
Yeah, so we have had discussions about phased labor improvement models, a phase 1 and a phase 2. So I think that it definitely needs to be a part of a grant discussion or any proposed budget. So
Yeah, I mean, if that was the direction that it ended up going, you could apply for a safer grant and you could get all of those folks paid for like a 3-year period.
And I know this is probably one of many meetings to come. I'm more than happy to be part of the process, to work with you. If there's anything that's going to be coming out in the next 3 months, I'll be more than happy to forward it to you, the town manager, Mr. Savetti, and if you could just, the chief, and then send it to the appropriate parties. But I will follow up with you with the CDBG.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Yeah, this committee meets every other Thursday night. So, whatever, and if there's anything else that comes up and we think, oh, maybe we should check for a grant on this, we'll let you know.
Be my pleasure to come down.
Anything else for Lisa?
So you do the other stuff with REMA? You do like the EMPG, emergency management preparedness grants and stuff from them?
Yes.
Okay.
Right, great. Thank you so much. Really appreciate the time.
Thank you.
Wonderful to be here with you this evening. Appreciate it.
Thanks. All right, Mr. Teston.
Okay.
And maybe we'll make sure to address Mr. Heavy's question about a 77% increase in commercial entities not being taxed in Western.
Yeah, so our commercial, we don't have a commercial tax rate, so it's all looped into one. So we only have like 3 businesses out there, so
Okay,
you really only have like a residential rate.
okay, all right, see.
Yeah, good point. So we started talking about this a little bit. Again, my intention tonight was kind of assign a homework assignment, and try to avoid people getting ahead of themselves, but that didn't happen. What I'd like to do, and you guys we can go through it. We don't have to go through the whole document. We can go through like a section or two as an example, if you'd like. But just quickly on the format, the way that I set this up was take the current budget for each district and align them on the left-hand side here. So for each district, if you go to the final page and look at the left section at the bottom, you'll see a number that you should recognize as the total expense for your district. What you might not recognize is individual line items, because I had to move some things around from one line item to another to align them. So that, for every district, you see legal on the same line, or you see, wages on the same line and things like that. So, but that's the left section. It should be today's cost of each district operating as it does today. And in the grayed out section on the first page, there's what I tried to do is list the related headcount, the union headcount as applicable. And then on the second page near the administrative section, that's employees of each district that are not union, right? So, clerks or tax collectors, things like that. And so you list what you have today, both in dollars and in terms of headcount. And then on the right-hand side, I recalculated based on the headcount that we, as an example, right, the headcount that we talked about before, which is today's headcount plus the phase 1 and the phase 2. So 4 people at station 1 and 8 people at station 7. I added those folks in, and then I reset every station, every district's personnel costs to the highest priced contract. So the one that I believe is closest to what the market is for firefighters, which aligns with like an East Providence and some of the others. So I said, so if you look at like the total union section, which is sort of towards the top of the second page, what you'll see is, and we said this a couple of meetings ago, if you added 4 people at Anthony Station, I said it was going to be about 600K. If you added 8 people at Station 7, I said it would be about $1.2 million. Those were just ballpark numbers, right? What you see is the total. So if you look at like the middle section, which is the change between today and what's on here for a revised budget, if you look at the total, you see the changes as it relates to adding the people and the changes as it relates to adjusting or standardizing the salaries and the benefits and all the things across each category for each district. And then as you go through all of the other, so people like 80% of the total, as you go through all the other categories here, and there's a lot of line items, but a lot of them are, I could probably, eliminated, some of them are zero. But you go through the admin stuff and you say, okay, let's look at, legal, let's look at IT, let's look at clerks and tax collection and things like that. And so there's an admin section aside from each district, which is like the town resources that you might add, right? So you'd say, so if I'm on the administrative cost section on page 2, you might say, okay, under the admin side, maybe you're going to add 50K, and this is, again, you have to just make an assumption. I put a number in there. We should talk about what each number should be, but to just put a placeholder in, I said, oh, what if you put in 50K on tax collector, right? And then 30K on legal. And then there was, thought I had. But you say, okay, I need one additional resource at the town for IT, for legal, for, whatever. You take it out of each district. What's the net change of taking out 4 tax collectors and adding one at the town, right? Those types of things. So you go through all of these, and what I'd like to do is, I wanted to explain the format, but then ask the individual districts to go through their column and circle things they have questions about, have an opinion about whether something should go up or down or go to 0 or stay the same. And then let's go through them one at a time. One, me and each member of each district, and update this version for next time. But this is just, here's a starting point of what what it looks like to create a budget, right? Create the budget on the cost side first, and then figure out what do I need to fund that budget.
Brian, if I may?
Yeah.
The homework, what you're asking to do is go through that first column, fiscal year 25, fill in the blanks that the information's not there, so you can better complete the back end of that on the opposite side of the page. Is that what you're looking for?
Yeah. So if you look at the left side, for your district, and you say,
FY 25,
say this is my current budget.
that's missing, supply it to you. To Jillian's point, get it to you either with a mock-up or set a meeting with you or scan it and send it to you.
Sure.
So you can better complete the revised side.
Exactly.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
We can do that.
I kind of alluded to this. Can we add another column, just getting rid of things, adding things as it stands now, instead of just adding people, so we can see where it stands as well?
I was gonna ask the same thing. So once we get this finalized the way you have it here, I think we definitely need to see 3 versions of status quo, phase 1, phase 2.
Yeah, I would say, yeah, what you want to do is you want to present like scenarios,
Well,
right?
no,
Or
and
options, or what do you want to call them? But you want to say, here's what a total municipal department looks like at this staffing level, at this staffing level, and at this staffing level.
yeah, and then the obvious effect is when you compare it, you can see, well, oh, if it's going to only be X amount more to add this staff, then might as well at this point do it now. Or, oof, that's going to be steep. Let's make sure we plan for this incremental, whatever it might be.
Or you look at it and you say, okay, we have this many today. We want to add 4 at this station and 8 at this station. That's 12 people. Do you want to add them now? Maybe you get a safer grant for 12 people. Now you've got it paid for 3 years, 4 years, something like that. And that gives you 3-4 years to
Ramp up.
your fund. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. 3 now, right? 100% 3 years. As I understand it, you hand them your contract and you say, here's what I would have to pay them. and they
Soup
pay
to
it.
nuts.
To outfit them and everything.
On a safer grants, 100% soup to nuts for 3 years. Salaries, benefits, gear, all that, everything, A to Z for 3 years.
So I'm trying to do the math in my head. So say it was the first phase, the 4 guys or whatever you did say for 4. And the cost is, what do you think, around 630,000, you said?
600. And they would pay for that for 3 years, and then you'd be on the hook for that on year 4.
And then just split that over 3 years, make sure you budget.
Right. So like, so in theory, right, you'd say, okay, if it's, let's say it's 600 and it's 1.2 million for the other ones, for the other 8. Now you're at 1.8 million. It's sticker shock. Yeah. If you say I have to increase this on day 1 by 1.8 million. But if the town has 3 years to get to that point, it's a lot easier.
Brian, if I may, right? So under, you're talking about the administrative fees. So that administrative check, we already know that the town already has that.
Yeah.
Agree, right? So
Yeah.
mostly we're just bringing in the firefighters. That's it.
There was a comment made in one of the previous meetings where we said like, okay, if all the districts went under the town, and you didn't have to do tax collection, the town's tax collection office could do it, right? And they said, well, we might need an extra person in the office to do it, right? So you add 1 person on the town in this admin column, and you remove 4 people, right, at the district level.
That wouldn't come under the fire department budget, is what I'm saying.
Right, but you have to include it in this analysis because it's an impact to the town overall, right? So that's what I'm trying to do, is show a net impact, right? There's going to be a net savings in that line item, right?
But I think his point's well taken. I think
Yeah.
there's gonna need to be like a footnote that says this is for the purpose of seeing what would be coming over and what the budget would look like, but going forward, it would be in the tax collector's department.
Right.
Mostly salaries we're looking at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if we wanted to talk about this document, the rates.
Just one comment. on your-
Yeah.
So just
Do you have the
listening
mic,
to
do you have your mic on?
That's on. Sorry. Just listening to everybody. To the left is already everybody's budget, right? So I'm hearing people saying they need to go add stuff in there. There's really nothing to add in there. That's their
budget.
That's their operating budget that was in there. Where the focus should more be is looking at your additions and saying, are you capturing everything, right? So that middle section, and where the lieutenant was just mentioning, about the payroll side, I totally get where the admin component for tax. But you do have in there on the first page an estimate of, for the firefighters, 420,000. So adding in an additional base salary of 420, that's your admin component. So you're really looking at the aggregate of all the fire districts at this point for fiscal 25. The aggregate budget's roughly 11.1 million, and your projection shows that adding some firefighters, you would be at roughly 12.9 million, right? So adding 1.8 million to the budget. So,
Yeah.
okay. I just want to
If
make
you-
sure I was, because
If you did
to me,
this,
the left is
if you did the same copy without adding people, right, the 12 people, right, you'd see that number overall come back down.
Correct.
Should be noted that our annual meeting's on Monday, so Westerns might change. Just
That's
so you
technically
guys-
your fiscal 26 budget, correct? So we're looking at, when we're putting this together, like when you sent me over the levy, I think that was the levy that was currently in place, right?
So it would
Sure.
be,
24.
the one that you have ends 2 weeks ago.
And that's also,
I think it was like 2 weeks ago.
But I think I'd rather have the most recent information in here. I get we want to start building from something, but if their meeting's Monday, let's build off from that.
just added in.
It's
Yeah.
the majority of.
I'm just going to say this,
Yeah.
though. All of the districts are on different fiscal year, right? So like my district's on a calendar year, January to December. They're doing their annual meeting now, but it's March to February? Or is that what it is? I don't know.
Our annual meeting's typically the first Monday of April. So it's like March to March.
Okay.
It's just it's a week later.
So it's like April 1st to March 31st?
Whatever the first Monday is. So
So from that perspective, though, this left side represents a 12-month period, not necessarily a specific 12-month period, not the same 12-month period, but the most recent 12-month period.
Anything else on the budget piece? So everybody's clear on the homework that Mr. Teston has assigned?
Brian, the only thing I think you're missing is Hopkins Hill's payment for their ladder truck isn't in here. They have an annual payment for the next couple of years.
Is it?
It's not,
Well-
I don't see it under the ladder lease. I don't see any, unless it's someplace else.
We also have a rescue lease that's not on here, but I'll add it
A
in.
couple pieces, I mean, it's 99%.
Yeah, so I think related to that, and you guys know Hopkins Hill better than I do, but I believe that's because that's not part of their general operating budget, because that gets paid for out of their rescue fund. So they have a capital projects.
Okay, so, because I was
They
gonna
do have
say,
Payments that aren't
this 1502 ties off to the budget that they gave me.
correct. And like I
Right.
said, their debt service is not part of their general operating fund. They have
Okay.
another fund where they put some certain percentage of the rescue fees go in there and it's paid out of that fund.
So
So that's why that's not.
On that topic, this also, this is, as an operating budget, does not include any capital, right? So, or a sinking fund or anything like that. So we'd have to figure out how we want to account for that, or do we not account for it, right? Do we say, we're gonna look at capital and say we're gonna get grants, or do you want to plan something in a bucket and say we need to put some money away every year to build up a pool to pay for a new rescue when we need one, right?
So with the, if you look at the budget for Hopkins Hill, just looking at here, where you're showing the rescue recovery revenue budget at 120,000. So they
Yeah.
put the first 120,000.
I asked that
Rest-
question. I said, that's not right. And yeah,
Rest goes
that's
into
why.
the other fund where the debt service is paid from, dispatches are paid out of that other fund.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
We
So-
can definitely get the information of what those actual costs were for the past. couple
If
fiscal
there's anything else like that, that's kind of off books or, outside of the operating budget for any of the districts, let's talk about that too, because we want to incorporate that.
Anything else on this sheet? Any comments on the tax roll assessment?
So again, I'll just go through that quickly. So, we discussed the previous meetings. I asked everybody to provide the most recent certified tax roll or information to me. So based on that and, including Weston, which is why I thought we were all on the same page, I received the 2024 tax roll, which was an assessment date of 12/31/2023. So no matter what fiscal year you're on, we're utilizing the same valuations, right? That same valuation date or assessment date, 12/31/2023. So again, not a lot of science to it. Just top portion of this, we dropped in what the current tax rolls were, the net tax levy. So you can see the town of Coventry, based on that 2024 tax roll, the town's tax levy is 81.6 million. The Coventry Fire District, roughly 2.3 million. Hopkins Hill, 1.079. Central Coventry, 4.8. Weston, 951. To giving you total tax levied by all the districts and the town at roughly 90.8 million for the 2024 tax roll. So then if you drop that down and say, okay, if we had to raise that 90.82 million, looking at the net assessed values, right? And again, there's a lot that goes on here because you have some districts that have frozen properties, some don't have the frozen, rates, but just looking at, again, a quick put together, the calculated tax rate, if we would have to bring in this full 90 million of tax levy to be raised, the residential rate would have been set at 17.95, commercial industrial rate 24.91, and the tangible property rate of 22.54. And then on the backside, what I did was just put together, okay, what's everybody's current rate, right? Which similar, I think you had in your analysis. So the current rate that everybody has just listed, residential property estimate. So if you had a home valued at 300,000, 400, 600, or 800, what would the taxes have been? So for the town of Coventry, just looking at, we'll go with a $400,000 home, residential property. Under the rates for the 2024 tax rolls, the town's property tax be roughly 6,300. The Coventry district, 782, Hopkins Hill, 780. Central Coventry, that home's 626, Weston Coventry, 660. If you were bringing it all together, that combined rate that I just said, the total tax would have been 7178. So if you go down to the last section where it just says, okay, if we looked at the combined in town, you know, that $400,000 home for, if you had it combined, just what they were paying the town plus what they paid the Coventry Fire District, that $400,000 home, they were paying 7,117. Hopkins Hill, 7,114. Central would have been 6961, and Weston 6994. So you can kind of see the impact of,
Yeah.
you know, each, depending where you resided, what the impact would have been had we combined all the tax levies. And again, there's a lot of variables in this, right? Because again, there's some districts that don't have the freeze, some that have the freeze, so it's a matter of trying to come to it. And again, working with, you know, a lot of work that still has to be done because you have to work with Department of Municipal Finance and deal with the tangible, you know, because that's essentially a frozen top level. It could always go down. But it just gives you a ballpark idea. If we were to pull everything together, looking at the 2024 tax rolls, what the rate would have had to been in the town to just support the current budget.
So this is basically that, you know, left pocket, right pocket analysis that shows if you just took exactly what you have today and you put it together with the town, and you'd see the town's tax rate, residential tax rate, go from 15.8 up to 17.9. But then each individual district rate would go to zero. And so, you know, the net impact to a single taxpayer, I like how you did it here, for a $400,000 home or whatever the value is, you look at it and you say, well, I was paying the town this number and my fire district this number, and now I'm going to pay this one number that's a little bit higher instead, and the fire district number goes to zero. Yeah.
And again, this doesn't bring into any elimination of positions, bringing on new fire personnel. This was just, as you mentioned, you know, a snapshot of where we're currently at and just looking at the tax rolls that everybody has currently in place.
What levels of, what taxes are we charging that you guys aren't? So if we have 5 levels or 4 levels or whatever it is, what is the town using right now? You have a residential rate, a commercial rate, an industrial rate, a tangible, do you have all the same stuff?
Correct. So, yeah, right now, for the most part, we do. It's really the freeze, right? So Central has a free, I think Central does not have a freeze. Coventry District
We have like,
does.
it's like
very minimal.
$9,000
Yeah, it's
of
minimal.
the $2.3 million levy. Yeah. It's like 30,
Very minimal.
30 properties on a list.
Town freezes taxes on people who are over 65.
Over 65, been a resident here
How
for
would
5
that-
years.
How would you, we would just take what they're paying now and it would still just be that one frozen rate?
Again, that's what we'd have to figure out how that works. You know, that's one of the difficult pieces, because you say, okay, they were frozen at their tax rate for the town, but how do you now factor in what they were paying for the district?
Right. That's a fair point.
Yeah, and there's current discussions how that program is gonna go forward, you know, with the town council and finance committee.
Yeah,
Oh,
that,
you did an audit or something, right?
yes, those applications have been doubling year over year the past 3 years. We talked about it at Tuesday's meeting and the finance meeting last week. We have almost $900 million in assessed property value frozen. Yes. We're one of only 2 communities with a senior property tax freeze, not exemption. So tell me if I did this wrong. So in my head, the first thing, because I know this is gonna become a question, is based on what district I live in, am I gonna see my taxes different, go up or go down from this? Because we know that the rates are all different, right? So if I take, say, a $300,000 residential property estimate here on the back. I take the 4 rates from each district, add them and average them, right? I get, say, about 534, 535 bucks. So based on that, if that's, say, the new blended rate for something like that, or the blended amount, like so you're seeing for $300,000, Coventry Fire District residents would see a $52-ish decrease in their annual rate. Hopkins Hill would see a $50 decrease in their annual rate. And then Central would see a $64 increase per year. Western would see a $39. I'm trying to just do some ratio math. Am I right in thinking of it like that?
Do that again?
So if I'm looking at a scenario for, say, the residential property estimate, 300,000, okay? I don't even look at the town of Coventry, right? Look at Coventry Fire District, Hopkins Hill Fire District, Central Coventry Western. I add up 586.80, 585, 470.10, 495. Divide that by 4. And then you assume that that would be the average, right? Based on that average of $534 for a rate, I'm then applying it and saying, okay, this would be the kind of the shift in rate for where people live that they're seeing now. Is that totally bogus to do? Am I wrong? Like,
Sure, you can add them together or take an average of them.
oh no.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. Okay.
I think the bottom chart, which is what I tried to do, and again, it's not precise, obviously, it's based on the numbers that we have at this point. So you're saying, what I'm saying at the bottom is a $300,000 home in the Coventry district would have been paying $5,337. Now they're gonna pay $5,383. So they have a slight increase. Hopkins Hill resident would be paying $5,336. If it was a combined rate, it'd be $5,383. Central Coventry would be paying $5,221. Instead, they're gonna pay $5,384 or $383. And Weston would have been paying $5,246. Now they're paying $5,383.
So is the result the same? Central and Western would see
Central and Weston would see,
slight increase.
increases higher than you would see in Coventry and Hopkins Hill.
Okay.
$10 a month, Bob? That's what it comes to, about 100
Oh,
bucks
yeah.
a year. It's
Correct.
$10 a month.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
No, listen, I'm just saying it's gonna be something that comes up. That's gonna be, we can't be blind to that. So I know Jillian's cognizant of that. So, thank you for putting this together. Any other comments, questions on the blended? I do think it's definitely worth the freeze piece. We got to figure that out.
Yeah. Agree.
And this might be coming at the perfect time. Like you said, we're looking to make some revisions to that at large anyway. Anything else on this one? I don't think we have anything else on the agenda.
We just have Brian's homework then, for 2 weeks.
Yes,
Thank you, Bob. Thank you for all that.
Professor
homework.
Teston.
Both of you. Thank you very much.
All right. If there's nothing else before the commission, I will seek a motion to adjourn at 7:11.
Motion?
Motion and second. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.